Connecting for pedagogical impact. I just want to very briefly introduce before I want to invite Meredith again up here, Meredith Storey, who is leading as our senior manager of PRIME, who is leading, I think it's fair to say, it's not only PRIME's largest project, it's also the United Nations Global Compact's largest project, largest donation at least, ever in its 23 years of existence. And Meredith, you are in charge and you're leading it, and I'm always telling the story of Meredith. I waited for this lady for 6 months to come, and it's worth the wait before she was ready to leave her tasks with Jeff Sachs at the UN SDGN. Meredith also comes with something as wonderful as a PhD in responsible management education. Can you imagine how lucky we are? And Meredith, I just say my shoulders, after you entered PRIME, my shoulders went considerably down. And I'm so happy to have you here. So please take us through the next session.
Thank you, Mette, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. This is actually my third PRIME Global Forum, so it's very exciting to look out into the audience and see so many familiar faces and so many new faces. So, I mean, for 3, it's been since 2015, so I know a lot of you have been around even longer than that, but it's great to just have this community spirit here with us today. So I know that there is a lot to get through in a very short amount of time. So in order to get your brains flowing, your hands flowing, I would like to invite Garrett to the stage with me. For those who were here yesterday, Garrett is our Lego expert. He will get you thinking, he will get you believing, he will get you just really thinking about everything that we've got going on. So Garrett, over to you, please.
Hello. Welcome. Yes, and in the effort to kind of keep the momentum around bringing play and bringing us together in the same space together, if you looked inside your bag, there should be a stack of what we call 6 bricks, which are 6 Duplo bricks, and we do a variety of different activities to encourage play, but also skills development and beyond. So if you would dig them out, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Mette. Now, one of the great things about play is not necessarily about the outcome per se, that we're not trying to get you to necessarily build something that's beautiful or something to accomplish, but it's in many ways to get you to convey your ideas, your thoughts, and to kind of have a playful interaction with your colleagues next to you. So what I would like for you to do is to take these 6 bricks and think about playfulness or the lack thereof, and I want you to build a stack with what colors you think are the most playful, from the top being the most playful to the bottom being the least playful. You don't need to overthink it. There's going to be some gradations in here. And then what I would like you to do is then to turn to the person sitting next to you. Ideally, they have bricks, but if they don't, that's okay as well. And discuss why you chose that color to be the most playful. Take a minute to talk, share your ideas, and I'll let you talk about now, and then I'll talk about the least playful in a moment. So share your ideas of the most playful and why you chose that color. Thank you. Light blue. Mm-hmm. Ooh. This is my order, yeah. I had, with the hand mic, I'm like, I gotta do this before I start, right? All right, I can tell by the volume this is working. Yesterday we had a lot of clicking and clacking of the bricks. Generally, I would follow up with what you saw as not playful, but I think you've had enough to talk about with playful on the top. So thank you very much and enjoy.
All right, thank you all very much for thinking through that exercise. Wait just one moment while our panelists join us up here on stage. All right. For the last year and a half, Prime has been doing a lot of work. Thank you. Thanks, John. For the last year and a half, Prime's been doing a lot of work in trying to develop an understanding around what the impactful 5 pedagogies can be for our community, understanding what the LEGO research is that has gotten us to this place, but understanding all of the things that it can be to our community just beyond what exists on that page. We've been very, very lucky to have the partners that we've had, that we've been able to work through these questions together and build a community around this experience. So you will see as we move forward that we have given you all these cards, which are in your bags, which have a QWERTY code or a QR code, and you're able to scan those and receive a digital copy of the playbook. We did not print them all for you because we do not want you to have to carry them home. We are very conscious of our footprint here. But we do hope that you'll be able to review this, be able to look through what the experiences of other peers in the Prime Network have been, and that we can connect together moving forward through the additional workshops and everything that we run throughout the next few years of this project, and as we build forward with a community rooted in pedagogical development as well. To begin, would each of you please introduce yourself as I get settled, and we'll go into questions then. Daniel. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel Wilson. I'm the director of a research center at the Harvard Graduate School of Education called Project Zero. It does stand for something, not nothing. It's a research center for the last 56 years at Harvard University that's been exploring issues of creativity, human potential, intelligence, and I also teach there. I teach courses on designing learning environments as well as group learning and collaboration.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel.
That was
perfect.
perfect.
We'll come back for questions in a second, but Aurora, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Aurora Diaz Soloaga, and I work in Almaty Management University in Kazakhstan. I teach there corporate social responsibility, introduction to sustainability mindset and leadership for the last 7 years. And I've been honored to be included in the experts pedagogical group to work precisely on 5, on develop this new pedagogy for nurture the future leaders, the responsible leaders of tomorrow.
Hi everybody, I'm John Goodwin, still. Apart from being the MC for the Global Forum, I'm also the executive chairman for Learning Economy Foundation that works to develop open source technologies that remove inequities in education and employment. And formerly, I was the CEO of the LEGO Foundation and was the collaborator with Meta that helped develop the i5 concept and thinking, and really enjoying my Prime board membership and i5 advisory chairmanship at this point in time.
Very good. Thank you very much. So to begin, because this session is truly about launching the playbook, I think the most apt question here is for you, Daniel, to speak through the playbook itself and what your experience as the co-author has been, and the experience of working with the Prime community to get all of these inputs to build this.
Happy to. And let me say that while I might be listed as a co-author, it really is a group co-creation. So myself and my colleague Amber, who's in the back there, I think Amber's somewhere there. There you are, Amber. Hi. We had the privilege of working with 18 professors over the last year and a half. And the mission was to essentially transpose research that not only I've been part of, but a number of other researchers have been part of over the last decade, which has explored playful learning. And let me pause here because I want to disabuse you of some of the language here. So that is, when I say playful learning, what I'm not talking about is juvenile frivolity. What I'm talking about, or you might think about like early childhood activity on playgrounds. While that is all interesting and important, I think, in human development, those of us who study playful learning look underneath at what are some of the psychological and social psychological states of playfulness. And playfulness has to do with some important pillars of human development. And those pillars include elements like agency and empowerment. When we play, we exhibit a sense of agency. That is, we can do things we want to do. Certainly there are constraints, but we feel like we have some power to influence things. Another is we feel some emotional positive states, things like joy or delight, and those are important. Certainly there are moments of frustration, but those get resolved through positive affective states, and that's an important part of human development. And the third is a sense of wonder or surprise or curiosity. So the combination of these elements from a psychological standpoint form the basis of playfulness and playful learning. Now, each one of us, I can imagine, have had micro experiences of playfulness. I mean, think of a good conversation maybe you had this morning with a colleague or someone you met. It's not something we necessarily know the outcome, but there's a little bit of agency, some empowerment, some curiosity, some wonder, and hopefully some delight in that experience. And we would code that as a playful kind of experience. So playful learning is not like, okay, let's play games. It could include that. But playful learning, broadly put, is how do we create the psychological conditions for these states to, for lack of a better term, play out pedagogically. I like to say the opposite of playful learning is not serious learning. It's not. The opposite of playful learning is actually coercion and drudgery, where you don't feel empowered, when you don't feel a sense of wonder, when you don't feel those senses of positive affect. And that, as someone who's been teaching for multiple decades, and the folks I suspect in the room, we try to avoid that in our classrooms. However, there are certain things that creep in, forces perhaps we can control or can't control, which will influence those kinds of states. So the work we've been doing over the last year and a half is to transpose those kind of elements of playful learning into higher education business management classrooms. That work has been based not only on some other outside work, but work that's been funded with the LEGO Foundation over the last 20 years, I think. It's been a while since the foundation's been looking at it. They're not the only ones. But they've been funding work across cultures to look at what do these elements stand up across cultures. And in fact, they do. We see these kinds of elements. They might look different, but agency, wonder, delight, etc. There's a framework that's been produced by a number of researchers, which has 5 elements of states of play. You can read about that. I won't go into that, but they're based on these kind of foundational principles. The work over the last year and a half was to work with 18 professors, understand what they already do that maps onto these kinds of big elements, and then codify them into moves and practices that we all can learn from. The work is not complete, nor should it be. The work is sort of an initial frame that we can read about. I won't recap the playbook so much, but there are, you can see the principles, you can see a number of the moves in there, and you can see examples. The idea here is that it could spark the kinds of interactivity that was alluded to earlier, where we're sharing practices over time as professors of prime. I hope that's what you wanted me to say.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And some. Perfect. And that was a wonderful segue too, if you don't mind, to Aurora there, because you are one of these professors who's been working in this space and beyond this space for a long time through your work as an educator. So how do you see this as either affirming some of the things you've already done or challenging you to take risks, especially as it relates to your discipline and to the Sustainable Development Goals?
Sure. Well, probably I should start clarifying that for me this has been a really inner journey, let's say, because precisely I went through a process of realizing how I teach, why I teach, for what I teach, and putting a new effort and a new light precisely on my teaching philosophy and why I started that journey. So probably yes, there are many, or at least a couple of things that I realized that are already on my teaching D&I because, well, precisely that purpose of transforming the way the students see life, see problems, see challenges, but at the same time focusing on precisely those 5 methods or principles. I guess that this journey, this process, helped a lot to put much more effort precisely on the way I teach. And I should say that, yeah, probably, I mean, it has been complicated in the best sense of the word, sophisticated, elaborated, but it was a beautiful challenge and a beautiful journey, precisely. Because, as I said, perhaps some of those principles were already inspiring my teaching, and I guess that the teaching of all my colleagues, the 18 that should be seated as well here. Yes, I mean, it's a mix between what we have done previously and what we can do and what we are called to do.
Thank you. Very good. And John, you've been with this project since before this project was trendy. I mean, you've really known this research from the start. So to be able to see the roots of the project, but to see the Prime community as a place to be bringing this as a next natural step for this work. Could you speak to that and then really how we can carry forward together, both for students, for business, but even ultimately for sustainable development?
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited at where we are at this point in time. We're reaching the halfway mark of the 3-year grant that was issued by the LEGO Foundation to really explore whether there is transferability of the extensive research that's being conducted in the whole space of how we learn, admittedly at the early stages of our life, to see whether there's transferability across into the adult context. Because at the end of the day, what is really important is that the graduates that come out of Prime-related schools not only have the content knowledge that is needed for them to be responsible managers, but also the skills. And it's the complementary nature of those two that will truly translate into impact. So that was really at the heart of the thinking behind this journey that we started from a thinking point of view 3 years ago, but from an implementation point of view just 18 months ago. And I think it's important to underscore that there's already a lot of great work that's being done in this space as well, and that's been evident through the XPEG work that has not only illustrated what they're doing, but also through the communications and the networking. It's clear that many of you are very committed to that student impact and equipping those with the skills that they need. But I think in the context of the SDGs, what is clear in all of the reporting that we've had so far is that we are behind in terms of the deliverables that we need in order to get our planet and society onto a better trajectory. So if we're behind, and it's not going to be solved just by throwing more money at the situation, we also need to innovate and ideate. And that also applies to business schools. We need to innovate and ideate to ensure that we have a greater impact through the students that come through our institutions.
Wonderful. Thank you. To just take that question back to you, Aurora, the skills development, because you're there in the classroom, you've seen what your graduates would look like previously. I mean, this has only been about a year's worth of intervention here, but how do you see that 21st century skills gap from your students and how you're able to address through this process that you're undergoing?
Sure. Yeah, probably I like that word, that verb, equip, because in some way it reflects very well how we could provide the instruments, the tools, that, as you say, John, are not just the content, but the way we teach, that they could get those instruments, those abilities, those competencies, even when they are no synonyms, but some way they reflect that we are not just convened translating a content, but a way of thinking, a way of behaving, a way of taking decisions, which is at the end of the day what we all would love to see, that in a couple of years those agents will be the change makers that we are all looking for and looking forward. So yeah, some way, many times during our conversations and our work together, we realize that perhaps this is not that easy to measure, precisely because it's a long way journey. But at the same time, as I guess all the challenging and beautiful changes, it's even okay that we are not that able to measure in the short term, because we are looking for something big. We are looking for a transformation that is both about their identity, about their responsibility, and about their role as change makers. So it's not easy, but I guess that is precisely what we are supposed to be able to take risk for. We are taking a risk with such a new approach to pedagogy, but at the same time, we're making a good, how to say this, like a good exercise of confidence on them. So yes, equipment probably, and as she mentioned twice a word that I like a lot, which is a catalyst, right? That we are trying to catalyze. So yes, I like that word because it's something that is small, is just like a method, like a way of teaching, but that could imply a big change in the medium, in the long term. Yeah, I don't know if I respond some way.
It does, absolutely. And to take that answer as well to you, Daniel, I think that you've expressed in your first answer there a knowledge of how the science behind this really works and how it works with other ages and other cohorts. But what we're seeing in that business school classroom, I wonder, do you have any lessons learned from the other work or any tips or hopes for what has been done in this project that we are in here that we can take to this audience here to be taking back to their own classrooms?
Yep. Yes. And am I on?
You are.
No, I
Yeah,
am.
yeah.
I think there are many lessons that are emerging, and I certainly don't hold the summary of all of them, but I think one of the big lessons that I take away as an educator in my own classes is the emotional maturity that I must have in order to create those spaces where my learners, my students, can actually grapple with the uncertainty. Because as John was saying, these are the skills that we hope our responsible leaders will hold, our learners, fast forward 10 years, is that they're able to navigate these kinds of issues. And to do that, I as an educator actually have to know that emotional terrain. So I have to practice, how do I deal with uncertainty? How do I deal with my ups and downs of emotional states? How do I display joy and delight? How do I create the spaces where I can be frustrated and then learn what it is like to move through those things? Now, I'm sure many of you who have been in faculty meetings have not felt any frustration whatsoever. So, but these are important kinds of practices. The idea, I think, behind the work is that as human beings, there are particular ways we have that impact our actions and thinking over long periods of time. And the emotional qualities of experiences, that's an important element of just long-term memory, whether it's powerful negative experiences or positive experiences. So just understanding that, I think, offers an opportunity to think about, well, what am I going to do this week to open up the possibilities for emotions to sort of be held in the classroom. But if you're like me, that means taking some risk, and that means I have to have the competencies that I hope my learners will develop. I mean, I have to be a responsible leader in order to engender responsible leadership in my students. I have to be empathetic. I have to understand how to create those kinds of social interactions where students can disagree, where students can hold themselves accountable, where students can think about the kinds of challenges in a particular community, talk to different kinds of people, have empathy, etc. So I have to ask myself, do I have these kinds of competencies? How do I practice those? And then how can I then create the experiences? So that's just one lesson. I should also say that an important lesson just in general around, I'm not in a business school. I'm not a member of Prime, although I thank you for welcoming me in. I mean, I'm a researcher in social science. One of the important lessons around change, you mentioned transformation, is that transformation and change happens through changing the relational structures in systems. So how is it, if we want to be doing something new, we're understanding the power dynamics and the relationships in the social system and learning how to shift those around to put not just ideas and goals in a new kind of focus, but change the social kinds of power structures. And I think what's been labeled as the XPEG group, which is expert pedagogues, that's an intentional move to actually put people in different kinds of relational structures, put professors with other professors to learn with each other. And I think as we go forward, a lesson is, well, how can we create new kinds of relational structures with our students, with our deans, with other kinds of stakeholders, and bring them into this space, not try to do this alone. So I shared 2 lessons, sorry.
That's good. Those are very good lessons, thank you. So I did promise the organizers that I would be a bit timely with this, so I would like to just take the rest of our time here and ask for your final reflections on the process. We've talked a lot about the roots of the project here, but really to explore the wings a little bit more. Where do you see the next steps, and what are the ambitions that you see here? So perhaps to go just straight down the line again, Daniel, if you don't mind picking up there.
Oh, wait, what was the question?
Where, for the future.
Oh, yeah, for the future. Well, here's an invitation. I mean, I do invite you to scan the QR code and please read through the playbook. I hope some of you feel like I already do this. I really do. I mean, there should be familiarity in what's there because it's based on what Aurora and 17 other professors already do. It's mapped onto some language based on some science and some research that I've done and some others have done, but it really represents practice. So I would invite you to read it and actually look for what's familiar. If you hear yourself saying, I already do this, I want you to say, yes, that's important, but I also want you to consider what's unfamiliar. We don't want to get caught in the trap of just saying, I already do this, so I can't learn anything. Because one of the important parts of, I think, having impact is having coherency between how we as educators, how we develop, and then how we design the development for our learners. So we need to be continually thinking about how we're going to be challenging ourselves. So look for the unfamiliar, the small ways you might be able to tweak some practices, and talk to someone.
Yeah, I believe that every authentic competition should be a real beginning. So what we have done, and this playbook, and all these practices that we have been piloting and testing, of course they are the examples or best practices or ideas at least for many teachers all around the Prime community, but even farther, to reflect about our own work and vocation as teachers, to restart with new energy, but also with a new perspective of what we are doing is not neutral. It's not just something that someone should be doing and that should be completed, but something that really can make the difference. So I will recall the very founding word. I mean, a responsible teaching, as you just mentioned, then it can be better understood precisely with the help of this process. I mean, this project, this process, this playbook, and all the experience that we got during this year and a half.
So my look forward is that we achieve the Sustainable Development Goals as a consequence of all the amazing leaders that go through your institutions. And they're able to do that as a consequence of the pedagogical adaptations that you all make in order to enable them to be more impactful. That's my projection and dream as to where we're going with this. And I'm very optimistic and hopeful that Prime as a community can be a great sharing forum, as Daniel indicated and Aurora has already indicated, of all the great work that's already happening, but also that we can elevate the art of pedagogy as a true meaningful component of all faculty, alongside the great research contributions, as a means in which you can contribute to society.
Very good, thank you. Thank you three very much. And if I could throw my own answer in there
Please.
as well. I know I'm a neutral moderator, but as you could tell from my introduction, I do consider myself to be a member of the Prime community. I mean, I was a PhD at a Prime school, a champion school, an intern at the Prime Secretariat back when. And I've been there, I've been in your chair, I've been in your seat, and I've felt this process through the other global forums, through the other projects that have been launched through Prime. And this community is so powerful, the way that we can learn from each other and rely on each other and have these international moments of teaching and learning amongst each other. It's really so special. Like the Prime community is really what brings the magic to the entire process. So I just would like to thank everyone here for what they've been saying today and challenge each of you to please go read the playbook, but also take it back to your signatory, to your communities and to your classrooms to be thinking about how this can make sense for you. So again, shout out to the playbook and thanks. Back to you, Meta.